morning. Welcome to United First Parish Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey, welcome to our Unitarian Universalist spiritual community. We are delighted to welcome anyone who may be visiting with us. You can learn more about our website by going to, more about our congregation by going to our website, www.ufpc.org. I'm the Reverend Rebecca Froom. Our worship leaders this morning on screen and behind screen are our Director of Religious Education, Joan McDonald, our Music Director, Norman Corey, our Digital Usher, Anne-Marie Willer, as well as several colleagues who will be sharing the traditions of lighting the Advent wreath and the Hanukkah menorah. Our order of service can be downloaded from our website. Anne-Marie has put the link in there for you. We'll also be pasting hymn lyrics in the chat as we go. For our online worship services, we invite you to go ahead and leave your camera on because we love to see your beautiful faces when folks are in gallery mode. But I also know Zoom fatigue is a real thing, so go ahead and turn your camera off if that will help you be as present as possible for our time together this morning. Note, we are recording this service to be posted on YouTube at a later date, so if you prefer not to be seen in the recording, please turn your video off. We invite everyone to stay online after our service for our virtual social hour. There's time to converse and connect, responding to prompts to reflect on the service or a more open-ended conversation. And now let us center ourselves for worship by taking a deep breath together, letting ourselves arrive here in this place, this moment. And we are called to worship with words by Carl Seberg. Let there be joy in our coming together this morning. Let there be truth heard in the words we speak. Let there be songs we sing. Let there be help and healing for our disharmony and despair. Let there be silence for the voice within us and beyond us. Let there be joy in our coming together. Come, let us worship. For our chalice lighting this morning, if you have a chalice or a candle at home, I invite you to go ahead and kindle that flame wherever you find yourself as we light our chalice, symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith tradition, with Anne-Marie sharing the chalice lighting words.
Today's chalice lighting is by Victoria E. Safford, and it's called The Moment of Magic. Now is the moment of magic, when the whole round earth turns again towards the sun. And here's a blessing. The days will be longer and brighter now, even before the winter settles in to chill us. Now is a moment of magic, when people beaten down and broken, with nothing left but misery and candles and their own clear voices, kindle tiny lights and whisper secret music. And here's a blessing. The dark universe is suddenly illuminated by the lights of the menorah, suddenly ablaze with the lights of the kinara, and the whole world is glad and loud with winter singing. Now is the moment of magic, when an eastern star beckons the ignorant towards an unknown goal. And here's a blessing. They find nothing in the end but an ordinary baby, born at midnight, born in poverty, and the baby's cry, like bells ringing, makes people wonder as they wander through their lives what human love might really look like, sound like, feel like. Now is the moment of magic. And here's a blessing. We already possess all the gifts we need. We've already received our presents. ears to hear the music, eyes to behold lights, hands to build true peace on earth, and to hold each other tight in love.
Thank you. I invite folks to join me in reading our words of covenant, which will appear on your screen. As a free fellowship of this historic church, we unite to lift our hearts and open our minds to a larger reality, to accept, support, and encourage one another, to seek the wisdom in all religions, to cherish and sustain the web of life, and to strive for justice, compassion, and peace.
This morning marks the third Sunday in the season of Advent. In the Christian tradition, Advent is the beginning of the church year, recognizing the transforming power of God in the world and looking forward toward the birth of Jesus and the celebration of spiritual light. Each week until Christmas, we light a new candle on the Advent wreath. When so much asks for our attention, the lighting of one candle after another reminds us that this season must pass in its own time. Birth cannot be rushed. We have the choice to be awakened and fully inhabit the present moment. The light of Advent grows brighter and brighter as we celebrate our coming together as a community. This morning, we light the third candle. We light this candle as a symbol of joy, not just any simple cheer, but the experience of joy that cannot be contained. Advent asks us to proclaim our gladness as a gift to the world, even when sorrow and uncertainty abound. May we share our hearts through our words, our music, and the way we live our lives. Let the fullness of our joy lead to more freedom.
And let us lift our voices in song for the Advent hymn, People Look East. The words will be in the chat.
People look east, the time is near of the crowning of the year. Make your house fair as you are able, trim the hearth and set the table. People look east and sing today, love the guest is on the way. Furrows be glad, the earth is bare, one more seed is planted there. Give up your strength and seed to nourish, that in course the flower may flourish. People look east and sing today, love the rose is on the way. Stars keep the watch when night is dim, one more light the bow shall brim, shining beyond the frosty weather, bright as sun and moon together. People look east and sing today, love the star is on the way.
Our message for all ages this morning is titled The Shortest Day by Susan Cooper, illustrated by Carson Ellis. As we continue to reflect on our winter holidays, this story invites us to consider and celebrate the winter solstice.
the shortest day. So the shortest day came, and the year died. And everywhere down the centuries of the snow-white world came people singing, dancing to drive the dark away. They lighted candles in the winter trees. They hung their homes with evergreens. They burned beseeching fires all night long to keep the year alive. And when the year's sunshine blazed awake, they shouted, reveling. Through all the frosty ages, you can hear them echoing behind us. Listen. All the long echoes sing the same delight, the shortest day, as promise wakens in the sleeping land. They carol, feast, give thanks, and dearly love their friends and hope for peace. And so do we. Here now, this year and every year, welcome Yule.
Take a deep breath together as we lift our hearts for the sharing of joys and sorrows. This is a time for us to briefly share those life milestones that lift our spirits in joy or hope, or those pains and losses that fill us with heartache. As we enter this time of sharing, we light a candle of joy, knowing that a joy shared is a joy magnified. And we also light a candle of sorrow, knowing that a sorrow shared is a sorrow diminished. If you wish to acknowledge a joy or sorrow in your life, I invite you to raise your hands and unmute your mic when our digital usher, Anne-Marie, calls you by name. Let us open our hearts to one another. A final candle, representing all of the joys and all of the sorrows we hold silently in the sanctuary of our hearts. May the light of these candles and the compassion of this community remind us that wherever we are on our journey, each of us is worthy of love, and each of us is able to love. Let us return to that breath of life and love, taking a deep breath together, rolling our shoulders back as we breathe out, grounding our body into our seat, into the earth, and breathing together. Let us enter a time of shared stillness. Will you lift your hearts and join me in the spirit of prayer, listening in these words for the language of faith most meaningful to you? Eternal presence, known by many names, known in many ways. We gather this morning, heart to heart, meeting one another in this space that connects us, even though we are in many homes, missing our spiritual home, that historic sanctuary. In this time, let us remember the beauty, the sweetness, the physical spaces we have shared, and the relational, spiritual connections we continue to hold. We give thanks for the joys of our lives, for gifts given and received, for cookies and the sweetness of holiday traditions. We give thanks for new life, for babies, for birthdays, for relationships deepened, for meaningful employment. On this Sunday, when we celebrate joy, we know our lives are also filled with sorrow, with challenge. And so we open our hearts to all those walking the paths of sorrow, of grief. May we have times and spaces to recognize our loss, to honor our experience of grief. May those who are struggling with their health be granted healing. May those who are facing new diagnoses be granted courage. May those who are at the transition of death be blessed with comfort. Source of our being, source of our goodness, we see such need in our communities for healing, healing in body, healing in our democracy, healing in a world where wars and famine still affect so many. May we remember that we are a people grounded in love, a people grounded and guided by compassion. May we remember that in the most ordinary of tasks, when we act with kindness, when we listen generously, we are bit by bit building the world that we dream of. May we continue in these paths of love, of kindness, until such love and kindness can be felt the world over, and all voices can sing with gladness. We pray this in love's name. Amen, and blessed be. Will you join me in singing Spirit of Life? The words will be on our screen.
Spirit of life,
This morning, as we turn our attention, as we do year after year, to the tradition of Hanukkah, I share the Hanukkah story, adapted from versions authored by two of my colleagues, Sue Magidson and Sarah Lawal. In times of danger, dread, and despair, ancient stories can give us hope. In this time of fear and uncertainty, Hanukkah comes along to remind us of possibility, resilience, resistance, determination. You may know the Hanukkah story, that in the 2nd century before the Common Era, Greek rulers forbade Jewish practice and desecrated the most sacred place in the world for Jews, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. Then a small ragtag group of Jews, the Maccabees, resisted. They refused to assimilate, refused to adjust to a new normal. They defied those in power and against all odds, reclaimed the temple, cleaned it out. And as they prepared to rekindle the eternal flame, they found only 1 day's worth of holy oil. And miraculously, that 1 vial of oil burned for 8 days until more could be prepared. Hanukkah means to dedicate, and the Maccabees lit holy oil to rededicate the temple. During Hanukkah, we remember that the Maccabees did not yet know they would be blessed with this miracle, but they lit the candle anyway. They rededicated themselves, their temple, their community anyway. They began their work of restoring the temple anyway. And they held on to the strength of their faith anyway. On Thursday evening this week in Quincy Center, Rabbi Benjamin from Temple Beth Shalom of the Blue Hills, a congregation serving Milton and Quincy, the rabbi came and lit a menorah here on the Hancock-Adams Common. He shared that in Jewish tradition, Hanukkah is not a big holiday. It doesn't even show up in the Hebrew scriptures. It happens a little later than that. It's not a big holiday traditionally, but Rabbi Benjamin said it is a holiday with a big message. A message of religious freedom, of being able to claim and sustain space that's meaningful to a community. This was especially poignant this year as a menorah was lit in Quincy Center for the first time. The rabbi also shared that the messages of hope and joy that have become part of Hanukkah, of coming together for celebration, that message is also part of the tradition. The community in Jerusalem and Israel had been torn apart by war. Before that, torn apart by forms of cultural genocide. And at the end of the war, in reclaiming the temple and having this 8-day miracle, they returned to a space of community celebration that had been deprived during the months of war, during the years of occupation. So it's also a story of finding joy after a time when joy has been denied. And now, the Reverend Joanna Lubkin, our Unitarian Universalist and Jewish colleague, minister at All Souls Church in Braintree, she will share the tradition of lighting the Hanukkah candles.
Good morning. Last night, families around the world lit Hanukkah candles, lighting 3 candles for the 3rd night of the festival. So I bring this morning the practice of lighting candles to this Unitarian Universalist congregation, where many of us, like myself, have a Jewish background or want to honor the Jewish holidays. The rabbis of the Talmud, well, they argued a lot, and one of the things they argued over was how one should light the Hanukkah lights. One rabbi and his school of thought that each night you should add an extra light, that on the first night you light one candle or lamp, and the second night you light two, and so on. Another school of thought said, no, you should start with 8 and get fewer and fewer as it goes on. So from 8 candles and lamps or lights to 7 and 6. Well, as you may have guessed, the school of thought about adding light won over time, that's what we do. And the rationale is that we should be increasing light. We should be increasing joy in the world. We should be bringing more light to darkness. I'm taking that to heart this year, that in a year where things have been hard, let's add light. Let's add joy. Let's add wonder. So whatever that looks like for you, may this be a season of increasing light and joy, warmth and connection during long nights. I'll sing the Hanukkah blessings in Hebrew, the first 2 blessings over the candle, and the third for the first time in a year where one does something. And since this is the first Sunday this year where we're lighting Hanukkah candles together, we'll sing that one as well. And following that, we'll say the English translation. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim lavoteinu bayamim hahem ba'azman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'echianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. Blessed are you, source of all, who brings moments of holiness to our lives through the ritual of lighting the Hanukkah lights. Blessed are you, source of all, who brings our attention to miracles from ages past to this very moment. Blessed are you, source of all, who has given us life, sustained us, and brought us to this very moment. And let us say, Amen. Happy Hanukkah.
Our special music this morning is Light One Candle by Peter, Paul, and Mary. We will be pasting the words to the chorus in the chat if you want to sing along for portions of the song.
Exist was denied. Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice justice and freedom demand. Light one candle for the wisdom to know when the peacemaker's time is at hand. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Light one candle for the strength that we become our own foe. And light one candle for those who are suffering, pain we learned so long ago. Light one candle for all we believe in, let anger not tear us apart. Light one candle to bind us together, with peace as a song in our hearts. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears.
What is the memory that's valued so highly that we keep it alive in that flame? What's the commitment to those who have died? We cry out they've not died in vain.
We have come this far, always believing that justice will somehow prevail. This is the burden, this is the promise, and this is why we will not fail. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out, don't let the light go out, don't let the light go out.
They were playing Christmas carols in the airport. Christmas carols and Christmas songs of joy and jingle bells. And it was hard for me to hear. 15 years ago, just 2 weeks before Christmas, one of my best friends died in a car accident. And so in the midst of the holiday season, I found myself in this airport in Tucson where I lived, waiting to get on a plane to fly to Portland, Maine for her funeral. It was a hard time to travel. It was a hard reason for traveling. And in the few days I spent in Portland, I cried, I laughed, I reconnected with friends. I learned more about my friend. And on the last day of my trip, before I headed back to Tucson, back to the congregation where I worked, I said to my friend's mother, "How will I preach on joy on Christmas Eve? I'm supposed to preach about joy." And I immediately felt awful for burdening this woman who had lost her daughter with my own question. But she held my shoulder, took a deep breath, smiled, and said, "You will. You will find a way to preach on joy." And this is one of the many messages of the holidays. Joy will come. Somehow, after the war, the temple will be rededicated as a community gathers in joy. Somehow, after the long journey through the desert, a baby will be born and a community will gather in joy. Somehow, after the Earth's orbit has brought our tilted planet far from the sun, light will slowly increase here in the Northern Hemisphere, and we will celebrate that with joy. We honor joy this season and this morning, not because life is without sorrow, but because joy as well as sorrow is part of life. I'm not sure what I preached about joy at that Christmas Eve service 15 years ago, but I know I came up with something. And my colleagues and congregants preached about hope, peace, and love, because joy, like all emotions, does not exist in isolation. I don't remember what I said, but I do remember that I felt joy. Let there be joy in our coming together, we said during the call to worship this morning. And for me that year, I did find joy in the coming together as a church community to sing those carols, to light those candles, to remember that joy is partnered with hope, that hope is partnered with loss and sorrow. And all of this is what we honor in this holiday season. This holiday season where we see darkness and light, when we experience and hear stories of sorrow and joy, of hope and fear. We light candles, Advent candles, Kwanzaa candles, Hanukkah candles, solstice candles, to remind us that the light will grow, and to remind us to honor that dark, which is illuminated by these small flames. Now, today, 1 week before the solstice, we are going into the darkest 2 weeks of the year. We know light will return. As a faith tradition that values science, we know light will return. But before that, we have the darkness, these 2 darkest weeks of the winter. In this winter that will be hard as the pandemic continues to rage all around us. It is important for us to remember the hard parts of these holiday stories, the time in which individuals and communities wondered, will the oil in the temple lamp last? Will the peace, will the religious freedom last? Will the child be born safely? Will the child grow up in a safe world? Will we have the food to make it through the long, cold winter? 2,000 years ago and still true today. This morning in our call to worship, we heard the words, "Here's a blessing. The days will be longer and brighter now, even as the winter settles in to chill us." Friends on the journey, we are going into a chilly season, a time when we know there will be further loss, further grief, further challenge. But here's a blessing. We know that the light will return. And as the rabbis tell us, we know we have a role in growing that light and helping that light return. So friends on the journey, as we enter further into the season of darkness that comes before the season of light, let us remember to honor the fullness of our experiences. Let us honor the grief, honor the darkness. And in the midst of that fear, that grief, let us remember to honor the joy. Let there be joy in our coming together, so that that joy might fill us, strengthen us, as we continue on this journey between hope and fear through the dark winter night. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be. Our next hymn is Dark of Winter. I invite you to join me in singing. The words will appear as part of the video.
Dark of winter, soft and still, your quiet calm surrounds me. Let my thoughts go where they will, ease my mind profoundly, and then my soul will sing a song, a blessed song of love eternal. Gentle darkness, soft and still, bring your quiet to me. Darkness, soothe my weary eyes, that I may see more clearly. When my heart with sorrow cries, comfort and caress me. And then my soul may hear a voice, a still small voice of love eternal. Darkness, when my fears arise, let your peace flow through me.
We drink from wells we did not dig, and we sit in the shade of trees we did not plant. As recipients of all we have received from those who have come before us, we are called to share our abundance with those who will come after us. As a voluntary association, our church is sustained through the gifts of members and friends of this congregation. Your generosity makes it possible for us to hold online worship services, workshops, and small groups, even in these unusual times. Your generosity allows us to be faithful stewards of our historic building so that it will continue to be a place of sanctuary and learning when it is once again safe again to gather in person. Your generosity helps us strive for justice and live our congregation's values in the wider world. Please take this moment to visit our website and consider clicking on the donate button located on the homepage, ufpc.org. Let us open our hearts to these gifts, as these gifts support the good works of United First Parish Church, and they're joyfully given and gratefully received.
Here at United First Parish Church, we gather in many ways for spiritual growth, creative expression, and to put our values into action in the wider world. Our announcements are emailed out on Thursday or Friday, and they can also be downloaded from our website, www.ufpc.org. Note, we have several upcoming holiday events. Next Sunday on the 20th in the morning, we will have a virtual Zoom version of our traditional Nativity Tableau pageant. So please tune in for that at 10:30. And then next Sunday evening on Solstice Eve, some of us will gather outside in person for a winter solstice service, meeting in front of our congregation. Please wear masks and we'll be careful for social distancing during that event. And then on Christmas Eve, December 24th, we will gather at 5:30 on Zoom for a service. Please bring a candle. It can be a candle, wax candle, or an electric candle. If you want to, you can decorate your backgrounds like I have here. And portions of the service, the Christmas Eve service, will be recorded inside the sanctuary, which Claire and her team are going to decorate. So we'll be bringing some of that historic sanctuary, contemporary decoration, joy and beauty to all of you. Also on our website, like every week, you can find the religious education weekly children's chapel services. And also on the website are our past worship services. We have a YouTube channel, and every week we post the service there and link to it on our website. And then one more thing to do online is that last month we started a United First Parish Church virtual community Facebook group. So if you are someone who is on Facebook, you can go ahead and find that. And now let us return to that breath of life for our words of benediction, adapted from words by Howard Thurman. I will light candles this holiday, candles of joy despite all the sadness, candles of hope where despair keeps watch, candles of courage for fears ever present, candles of peace for tempest-tossed days, candles of grace to ease heavy burdens, candles of love to inspire all my living, candles that will burn all year long. May we go in peace and go in love to be a blessing to the world.